Gentlemen, welcome to another View market research video. I kind of am starting to really like doing these. I think I'm getting kind of good at them, and we're just getting started. So, we're going to talk about the S&P 500 today. And my opinions on the S&P 500 because I got a lot of opinions about this type of strategy and this type of thinking, okay? And some more like things I want to point out as because we've normalized this and it's become such conventional wisdom, right? Like people blindly agree today that the S&P 500 is like the place to put your money, right? And like that is logical and rational. There are a lot of rational and logical and conventional wisdom biases that confirm that to be true. But whenever things are viewed as explicitly true, right? And whenever things are just like taken for granted as just true for the sake of being true, it can't be challenged. You can't challenge Warren Buffett on this, blah blah. That always gets me kind of interested, right? Because we want to still poke the holes in things that appear perfect. So that's what we're going to try to do today. And in this, we have to first understand what an index fund is because the S&P 500 is an index fund. So we have to understand that the S&P 500 is a type of mutual fund or exchange traded fund that aims to replicate the performance of a specific market index. And in the instance of the S&P 500, you are getting exposure to the 500 largest companies in America. And when companies fall out of that 500, you are no longer owning them and they're automatically churning your money into the whatever is replacing that company in the top 500, okay? And so you as a passive investor in the S&P 500, you are basically, you know, given this passive investment, right? You are not actively managing the stocks that you are picking, okay? I believe that there is a more intelligent, a more ethical, and a wildly better outcome for you guys by doing like 90% of what the S&P 500 is doing, okay? So, we are going this is from yesterday's video, fuck me. All right, we're going to go to this link. Let's see. So, we're just going to look at what is in the S&P 500, right? Because if we look at what's in here, we see a lot of amazing companies. Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Facebook. I mean, these are really amazing companies that I would say is a great idea to have exposure to, you know? I mean, these are just cash machines, okay? But then there are other companies that you might let me back up. When I was in high school, I was very interested in active management, passive management. I was asking all of the wealthy dads in the area that I knew, hey, where do you put your money? Where do you put your money? Right. And I was living in California at the time. Okay. And in California, these guys are all, these climate change guys, these left Democrats, right? And they're always complaining about oil and climate change and big the industrial military complex, things like that. Some of those things I agree with, some of those things I don't. Doesn't really matter which I do, right? But then they would go ahead and tell me that they have most of their money in like things like the S&P 500, right? And this always drove me freaking insane because as you can see, that is them owning ExxonMobil, owning Chevron, right? Owning Boeing, owning these companies, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, right? These are all like this is a rampant issue in our country right now where people are claiming to state that they have these values, but if you follow their money and where they put their money, they are constantly voting for these companies to continue because they're literally owners of these companies, right? Your friends who just are passively investing in the S&P 500 are endorsing McDonald's practices. They're endorsing Pfizer's practices. They're endorsing all of these companies that we know they don't agree with, right? I mean, look at these. I mean, Boeing, right? BlackRock, like there's a lot of companies in here that are amazing. There's a lot of companies in here that are highly questionable, right? So to me, this whole idea of passive investing is a total freaking cop out. And the if you want to know what a mentally healthy person is, like technically speaking in the world of psychotherapy, it's a person whose beliefs and actions are integrated, right? A person who is not mentally healthy is a person who believes one thing and behaves another way, or behaves one way and says things that are incongruent to their behavior, right? And that is America to a T. I mean, look at this. What is the look? There's 45.88 trillion dollars worth of capital in the S&P 500, guys. You This is a rampant problem, okay? I can't emphasize this enough. Though most of these companies are great and I think are doing net positive benefits to the world, a lot of them aren't. A lot of them, right? And a lot of them, I mean, like even Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, what is Berkshire Hathaway? Berkshire Hathaway is pretty much Coca-Cola, Dairy Queen, So, and that's like right now the eighth largest company in America, right? It's the eighth largest holding company, right? Berkshire Hathaway is essentially another S&P 500, just, which is a micro index fund, right? So that's a little bit of a rant today. But the thing that you can all do, right? The thing that's available for all of us is to just export this list, right? Pick the ones that like this is there's 500 companies, right? You don't really need exposure to 500 companies if you have the most basic level financial education, okay? You can pick the best 300 companies and split up your money and just right. So if you if you agree with what 400 of these companies are doing, you yourself can just take the amount of the principal money that you're trying to invest with, right? And you can just divide that by 400 and allocate that amount to every company yourself. These things are not that difficult. And the conventional wisdom of the S&P 500 being such a great place to park your money is a form of voting. You are especially in this modern world, right? Because this modern world in America, you vote with your dollars. Your votes for politicians don't get you very far, right? Your votes with your dollars in through the New York Stock Exchange, Nasdaq, these things, that is where you have power in America, okay? So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. This type of trend will end because of people like me pointing stuff like this out, okay? So let's just let's stay vigilant. Let's stay mature about what these things are because at the end of the day, we want to win, we want to get great results, but we need to have our beliefs and our behaviors integrated. You don't want to be my freaking ex-girlfriend's dad who was constantly freaking complaining about climate change but then is putting all his money in S&P 500 which means that he's a literal owner of oil companies and all the things that he's complaining about all the time. That is actually, technically speaking, a mentally ill person in my opinion. So integrate your beliefs and your actions in across all areas of life, but especially with your money, especially in this time period that we live in America. Okay, because this shit matters, man. Okay, that's today's video. Here's another fact: Winston Churchill. If you look at pictures of Winston Churchill, he's often photographed during World War II doing a peace sign, right? But it didn't mean a peace sign. In British culture at that period, this meant victory. So when I say it, I mean both. Peace and victory. All right.